So after you download them, if it gives you a warning on Blackboard saying that, yeah, you know, keep, don't discard, because he doesn't know if they're valid or not. So you keep keeping them. These are different drivers. Let me create a new Java project, JDBC examples. And once it gets downloaded, once it gets created, I will going to right click and I'm going to go to properties. And that's where I have my builders, and I'm going to sorry, I'll have my Java build path. This is where I'm going to add my external jars. So once you select all 6 of them, you can just add them in one shot, and you can click OK, and they will going to be part of your project. Now they're only part of this one project, so if you start a new project, you may have to add them to that project. So you can switch over to these stations, start them, and then you may have to do the same process again. So we will open Microsoft Access. We're going to open a blank database in Microsoft Access. Just remember the location where you are saving it, because we need to refer to that location from Java. For example, mine is saved under Documents, Yusuf S, Users, which is in the root. We're going to call this one TBS Corp. Just name it, TBS Corp. Click Create. Now when the database gets created, you have a blank table to your left, which is basically there to show you that this is how you can create your tables. You may have to double click on this table, click on this table and then click on the design icon, and then it asks you, what would you like to call this table? I want to call this table Department, and click OK. Then it asks me, what would you like to give the field name? So the first field I would like to call Department ID, DEPT ID. Field size, I would like to change from auto number to text, short text, size 5. So here I'm in the description, I'm writing the sizes so that if you're following along, you know exactly what to choose. Department name, size 30, and department location, size 40. So after you declare these 3 fields, you'll also notice that Department ID has a little key to its left. That means it's a primary key. You simply save the changes by clicking the floppy disk located in the top left corner. That will save the table with all its definition. So right now we are using what we call QBE, query by example, where it writes the SQL for you and you don't have to write the SQL. We will also going to do an example today where you will write the create statement from Java, and I'm going to create the table for you in this database. Okay? Is everybody done with this? Mike? Got it? Okay. So now after you save the changes, you click on this data view, which looks like an Excel grid, and that allows you to enter some data. So let's put some data here. Okay, so once you are done entering maybe for some records, you can close the database. We don't need them anymore. The rest of the stuff will now be done through Java. Done, everybody, with this? Done? Caught up? Okay. Now let's close this Access database, and we will now be back in Java. Let's right click on the source and create a new class. We're going to call this one Connect to DB and Access Data. So with a public static void main. The reason I'm giving the long name so that from the names it's quite evident what it's used for. Okay, now that we are inside the Java, so we will going to first of all build a URL, string URL. Instead of JDBC ODBC bridge, I will going to build JDBC you can access bridge. Now with JDBC ODBC bridge, you write JDBC colon ODBC colon, you write the name of the system name that I showed you where you make the ODBC connection. Here, you basically list the path of where the file is to be found. So now I will going to go to my local computer and the location where my file is located. I'm going to just go to that location. And this is where my file is located, which is TBS Corp. So I'm going to grab the location. That's one way to do that, to grab the location right from here. The other way would be to right click on and simply go to Properties, and then you can select the location here too. So either way, it doesn't matter what you have. So either way, you click and select the location, and you come back into the database, into the Java Eclipse, and you paste it. And you paste it within the double quotes. Now in Java, a single slash means escape sequence. So that is why we have to use double slashes. Did it automatically double slash for you guys when you pasted? Because you're using Oxygen. So Oxygen would do that. I'm using older edition. I think I'm using Neon. So Neon doesn't do that. Okay. Followed by the actual name of the database. So I wrote TBS Corp dot ACCDB.
If you would have the database locally stored, would you have to qualify that much if you put it in the project folder?
No. Then you would have to give your if it is in the same folder as your project.
Just wondering.
You can try. I don't know.
I don't know if you,
Maybe afterwards you can try. Okay. Now. We are going to create a connection object. This is a Java built-in class which comes from java.sql package. So you have to import the package for the connection class to show. Right now we are setting our connection object to null. This will serve as a database connection object. A lot of the time Java developers would do that. They would set it to null initially, and in a try-catch block they populate it. Similarly, we have a statement object. The purpose of a statement object is to be able to write SQL statements. So this will serve as an SQL statement object. So when you write your SQL statements, this is the guy who runs it for you. The statement object. Then you can have your try-catch block. And we have a special type of exception called SQL exception to take care of SQL errors. And again, that also comes from java.sql package. The first thing that we do is, in a try-catch block, is we provide driver information. And again, it varies from driver to driver, whichever driver you're using. The one that I'm using is from you can access. So class for name, net dot you can access dot JDBC dot you can access driver. Now, this particular statement requires a special kind of exception, which is called class not found exception. That's why he's complaining. So what we can do, as we learned last week, that you can load multiple catches in the same catch by simply using an OR operator, bitwise OR operator. Say class not found exception. So as soon as you put this class not found exception, the class.forName error goes away. Class.forName error goes away. Now, you need to establish connection through the connection object, which you have only declared, but you have not yet used to establish the connection. So when you establish this connection, if your database has username and password, then you can provide it in the connection. Okay? So con equals to driver manager dot get connection. So driver manager is also another class. Now here you can provide the URL, which we wrote on line number 9. And this particular constructor is overloaded, so it also, one of the overloaded versions take 3 parameters. The last 2 are for username and password. So last 2 parameters are for username and password, respectively. So since our database is Access, we do not need to provide one. Therefore, we're leaving it blank. Next, instantiate statement object on connection object. So we have the connection object, which would allow us to talk to the database. Now, using the connection object, we're going to build our statement object. Why are we doing it through that? So that statement object can execute SQL statements against the database connection object. And in order to do so, you call the create statement method on the connection object to create the statement to execute on that connection. Okay, when you query a database, let's say you want a database to select some records for you. So what does the database do after you run a query on it? It returns the data set to you. The data set that it returns in Java, it's called result set. Okay? So there's a special class in Java called result set. The main purpose of that class is to hold the data that is being returned by the database. So what we're going to do next is we're going to write an SQL statement. So we're going to say string SQL statement. So I'm just creating a local string object in which I'm going to say, okay, select star from, what was the name of my table? Department. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Star from department. Now, my result set object will going to await the STMT to execute query. So there's an execute query method of the statement class to which you can give the SQL statement. It will run the SQL statement on the connection and will return a result set, which will then be caught by the RST object. So stmt.execute SQL statement returns a data set called result set in Java. This result set will be held in RST object. Okay, so it will be a pointer to the result set. If you want to read the result set, you need to traverse through the result set in a loop, fetching and reading one record at a time. So Chad, you probably might have seen something like this in RPG when you are fetching records, and it's exactly the same idea across the board. Okay, so we're going to say system.out.println department data, while result set.next. So what basically we are doing here is we are running a loop, running a loop till result set object runs out of values. So that's all it does. And now we need to go in this loop and start grabbing values. How many fields do I have? 3. So when I say select star from department, it grabs all the data from all the 3 fields. So I'll declare 3 local variables, DID, DNAME, and DLOC to store those 3 values. DID equals to, what was the data type of the very first item? It was string, so was the second, so was the third. So when you're reading the data from a result set provides you with a bunch of methods by get. And get can grab all these data types. As you can see, there's a long list of them. So we're going to be getting strings. Now when you're getting strings, you can get them by column number, means if it is the first field, you can say 0. Or you can actually retrieve by the column name. So once you retrieve the value, you can simply throw them in the output statements. Now, just to differentiate between each record, I'm creating a blank line. So, blank line between each record. Now, as you run this, check your output, and you will notice that you get all the data that you entered in the database.